Today we're going to start this video with another follow-up of a listing that we looked at back in the middle of July, guys. That was the last time we were over here, which is North Bay Village. And this house you see behind me was listed for sale back then, the same price that it's listed right now, $1,250,000. But here's the kicker. They bought this house back in March of 2021, okay, for $515,000. Probably did a little bit of work, whatever. They listed it for sale back in February this year, February 7th, for $1,350,000. Could not sell it, have lowered the price to $1,250,000. Still cannot sell it, guys. It's been over 6 months that they've had this listing and it's not getting sold. So this listing behind me is literally the perfect example of how delusional some sellers are right now in the current state of the housing market. Because think about this. These guys not only are trying to get more than double what they paid for the house, okay? But also they are not realizing that they couldn't even sell it in February when things were still piping hot. And now demand is ice cold and prices are coming down all over the place, including in this area right here. But yet somehow they think they're still gonna get top dollar for this property. I pretty much can guarantee you that place is just going to continue to sit there. It's not going to sell, guys. They're going to have to lower the price of that house probably under $1 million to get it sold. That's my guess. So that's how nuts things are right now when it comes to the housing market. And it sucks because it makes it very difficult for a buyer and a seller, right? Because if you're a seller, of course you want to get top dollar because technically it's still a seller's market and there's still, a shortage of inventory in a lot of places. But with these new high interest rates and inflation going insane, buyers are waking up and realizing, I can't afford this, I can't put an offer on this place, Even if they wanted to buy this, they probably can't. So that's where things are. And it's going to be a stalemate like this for a while until people like this start waking up and realizing, hey, I'm not going to be able to get this price for the property. I mean, and look at the greed there, right? I mean, you're going to be upset about selling it for $1 million when you bought it for $500,000. I mean, you're still doubling your money, guys, in like a year. So that's how crazy it is. During the meeting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Jerome Powell said that there is going to be more economic pain to come, guys. He's pretty much doubling down on his stance that the Fed is going to continue with interest rate hikes regardless of what's going on out there in the economy. And the only reason they're not doing, more and faster is because they're kind of like waiting for data to come in, like, okay, is this pushing things too far? How far can we push people in inflation and the interest rates before people can't afford stuff and before we really slip into a depression? So I think that's what they're trying to do. Because what he said is, he says higher rates slow price growth by lifting weakening demand, okay? That shows up in the form of higher mortgage rates, okay? Pricier loans, more expensive credit card debt, and that will slow the overall economic growth and weigh on the job market going into 2023. And as the spending goes down for these companies, they're going to be more likely to cut jobs and give smaller raises to people as well. So this is what we're looking at going into 2023 right now. I don't think this place was for sale last time we were over here. It's a different one. And basically, guys, Powell said at this meeting the same thing that I've been saying. He said that restoring price stability will likely require maintaining a restrictive policy stance for some time, and the historical record cautions strongly against prematurely loosening policy, which means they're not going to be reversing these interest rate hikes anytime soon. So many people are of the mindset that as soon as things start getting ugly out there, that the Fed's gonna, get scared and turn around and start lowering rates again, guys. But he just said once again that this isn't gonna happen, and we're already almost into September when we can expect the next rate hike coming later this month. So I hope everyone out there listening to this understands that everything is just gonna continue to get more expensive, guys, when it comes to financing. So if you're taking out a loan on anything, it's going to get more expensive by the end of the year, which shouldn't come as a surprise. But, there are people who think that, oh yeah, it's going to go back down quickly, whatever. It's not, okay? It's not going down anytime soon, at least until maybe sometime next year, and that's if we're lucky. So don't count on it. Count on things getting worse until inflation gets better. That's pretty much the state of affairs right now. Now, in my last video, I talked a lot about my property tax hike increase that I'm going to be seeing for 2023. And one misconception out there about property taxes is that they always go up, guys. A lot of people asked in the comments, you know, if the home values go down, which are looking pretty likely pretty much everywhere, are your property taxes going to go down? And I wanted to put some specific examples up on the screen for you guys to see that this does in fact happen. At least it does in Miami. I can't speak for everywhere, but this is not anything new. It definitely happens here, where if the value of your property goes down and the assessed value drops along with it, then you're going to see a reduction in property taxes. Take this one, for example, the total assessed value, right? It went from $451,000 in 2018 and then dropped to $364,000 in 2020. So their property tax bill went from $8,480 down to $7,050, okay? And they don't have a homestead exemption. We can look at another one here. Theirs went down quite a bit after not having a homestead exemption and then applying for one, receiving it, and then check this out. From 2018, assessed value down from $442 down to $264, and it literally cut the property taxes almost in half, from about $8,400 a year to about $4,300 a year. So that is a significant savings, guys. There's more examples. I'm gonna put a couple more up on the screen here. This one went from $8,100 to $7,300. Not as much of a savings, but here's another one, $10,000 back in 2018, down to $7,500 a year. So those are significant savings. And what happened back then? Well, property values in Miami were already starting to slip before the pandemic, and then once 2020 came, there was all this uncertainty in the housing market, as we can all remember, and property values went down all across the country, not just here. And that translated into lower assessed values and lower property taxes. So if people say that property taxes only ever go up, they don't go down, it's not true, guys. They can go down. Like I said, I can't speak for everywhere, but as we can see here, your property taxes can fluctuate with the market value. So keep that in mind. And I even had a bunch of people saying, oh, Michael, you know, you should have waited to buy and this and that. Sometimes opportunity strikes, guys, and you cannot wait, okay? That was one of these situations when you're running out of time on the lease and an excellent opportunity comes along. You take advantage of it. Many people out there watching my videos have done the same thing. I know a lot of you have become buyers in the past couple of years just because the opportunity struck. And sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. Is this the overall best time to buy? Absolutely not. But there are circumstances that still make it favorable over renting. So that's kind of the point I'm always trying to make in all these videos. And anyone who ever interprets that as something different is not really listening to what I'm saying. So keep that in mind too. Now, one of the next interesting stories I heard about today, guys, is how dishonest a lot of property sellers are being with their property disclosures. And in case you don't know what this is, a property disclosure is like a 3 or 4 page form that the home seller must fill out. It's not something that their broker can fill out. The seller has to fill it out. And basically, they disclose any known issues with the property. Does the roof leak? You know, is there problems with the air conditioner? Are there foundation issues? You know, has there ever been any structural damage? You know, what do you know about the property, okay? And it turns out that a lot of home sellers omit things and flat out lie on these property disclosures, which is something I didn't even know. I'm not surprised, but the truth is coming out now that this is actually happening. According to a recent survey by homebuyers, 90% of buyers, guys, say that they found at least one issue with the house after the transaction closed that the seller did not disclose, okay? And in another survey, which I'm surprised people even admitted to this, 94% of sellers admit to selling their home without disclosing a known issue. So this is illegal. That's breaking the law. So if you are a home seller out there and you do this, you can be sued. Just keep that in mind. The top common problems that buyers found with the property after the fact that were not disclosed were things like, the top one was definitely electrical, the second one was fixtures, plumbing being the third thing, exterior structural issues, basement issues, water damage, heating and cooling issues, problems with the exterior of the property, mold and termites, appliance issues, roof problems, foundation issues, the list goes on, guys. So you need to be extra diligent purchasing a home today, because people are flat out admitting that they're lying on these property disclosures. So the only person that's going to be able to determine what's really going on with that property is you and your home inspector, which leads me right into my next interesting story. There was this couple who recently bought a house in St. Petersburg, Florida, and they bought it for $328,000, okay? And they bought this house, and they had a lot of red flags come up when they were buying this house. Like things like they could never see the house without the sellers present. There was a lot of weird and nasty smells inside the place. They never felt comfortable really walking around and giving it a thorough inspection because the sellers were always there. So they never really opened up all the cabinets and did a very thorough inspection. And on top of that, their real estate agent hooked them up with his inspector, which is normal, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But his inspector was the one that did the inspection, and the guy didn't even inspect the attic, guys, which I've never seen that happen, okay? Every time I've sold a house, I have an inspector I work with. He's a really great guy, and he is very thorough. He inspects everything. If there's a problem with the house, you're going to know about it as per his inspection report. Well, it turns out that wasn't the case for this couple, and it turned into a complete horror show after they bought the house. Because what happened is, after buying the place, they found out that the place was infested with termites. They found out it had a rat infestation in the attic that was chewing through all the insulation in the property, all of the pipes and the HVAC system. They had to spend 35 grand just to repair that stuff. They had to tear out floors. They pretty much have to gut the entire house, okay? And these guys only had about $60,000 in savings for this entire project of the house. So needless to say, a giant chunk of their budget went towards unexpected repairs in this story, okay? And they could have actually sued the seller for not disclosing these things, but they decided not to. They pretty much sought out some legal advice, and pretty much what they found out was that it would take years to receive anything in return on top of the hefty legal fees, and it's pretty much would wipe out the amount of money that they had to renovate the house versus go after the home seller. So they decided to just let it go and basically take the hit and do all these repairs themselves. So these sellers literally got away with murder, selling this couple a complete piece of garbage that's basically a tear down. And these guys can't even live in the house yet. They don't expect to be able to live in the house until sometime in 2023 because it needs so many repairs, which is insane. And this goes back to the previous story we just talked about. You need to do your diligence, guys, because sometimes things like this can happen. And they had a list of things that they said they would do differently this time around if they were to go back and look to buy a house again. They said they would hire a realtor with experience, okay, and references. Apparently the realtor they had was a referral from one of their friends, but their friend never actually worked with this guy. They just knew them. So that was mistake number one, not having a trusted agent to work with. The second thing is they said they would use a lender and inspector that does not work with the realtor. Now, that's not bad advice, but I can tell you, if you have a good agent, then they're going to set you up with a good lender and a good inspector, just like I have done in the past. I have my trusted people that I always refer them to. There's no kickbacks. I don't get anything in return for sending clients to these people. The reason for sending them to them is simple. So we know that the transaction is going to go through and it's all going to work out. So that's why real estate agents have their trusted people. But clearly, this agent and the inspector were up to no good trying to get these people into a bogus house. The next thing is they let the seller stay in the house after closing, which made it impossible to do a formal walkthrough before signing all the closing documents, which means a lot of their furniture and their stuff were blocking some key areas that could have pointed out some major issues with the house, and they could have backed out at the last minute due to whatever issues they found. Even if they would have lost their deposit, it still would have been better than losing 60 grand on all these crazy repairs. So there's that. The next thing they wish they would have done is hire an attorney to review their legal documents and their contracts before closing. Now, I tell people, if you want to do this, go for it. You know, there's no requirement that you do it here in Florida, and some states do require that you do this, but here in Florida there's no requirement. And if the transaction's pretty vanilla, I would say you probably don't need to. But you know, if there are a lot of things that, you know, could potentially go wrong, like for one example here, the seller staying in the property post-closing, then yes, I would probably hire an attorney just to make sure everything looks good before finalizing everything. It will cost you probably another $1,200-1,300 for the attorney to, you know, review your contract and let you know if there's anything to worry about. And their biggest and final mistake, guys, was that they wish they would have had more savings for this project, because obviously they got hit with a lot of unexpected repairs after buying this house, and now they're literally living out of hotels and Airbnbs trying to get at least part of this house livable so they can move in and finish the rest of the home while they're still working full-time jobs and all this. So this sounds like an absolute nightmare, and you can definitely learn from these people's mistakes and do not make these mistakes for yourself. So I hope that anyone out there who has been desperate to buy a place hears this story and realizes that there's a lot of things that can go wrong if you're not careful. Now, unfortunately, we have more bad news this week for the Florida insurance market. Another Florida insurance company is going to be leaving. It's United Property and Casualty Insurance. They pretty much had their insurance rating downgraded from an A, which Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac require in order to purchase your loan, down to an M. So these guys are going to be pulling out of Florida in order to save their property insurance business in other states. And it's not just Florida, guys, that these companies are pulling out of. For example, this United Property and Casualty is also going to be pulling out of Texas and Louisiana as well, citing hurricanes as the #1 thing that these guys just can't afford to pay when all these claims come in, when there's these massive storms that come and cause a ton of destruction. So Florida has been getting hit left and right with more insurance companies just pulling out and just not insuring your house here no more, guys. So, and basically people are left with the insurer of last resort, we call it here, which is Citizens Insurance, and their coverage is less than favorable. And you know, from what I've heard from people, they're less than favorable to deal with as well when it comes to making claims and all of that. I've never had them, so I don't know what it's like, but it doesn't sound fun. And basically how this works is they just pull out little by little. So if you are somebody in Florida that has your insurance with this company, whenever your policy comes up for renewal, chances are they're just not going to renew your policy. They're going to say, sorry, we're not renewing your policy. You know, better luck next time. You got to find somebody else. That's pretty much how this goes. So keep this in mind if you live in Florida or you're planning on making a move here. And I can tell you guys, this is more of a problem when it comes to single family homes like this. You know, getting insurance for these type of properties is very difficult and more expensive than ever before compared to condos, for example. And the main reason is condos have an HO6 master policy where your HOA dues cover a good chunk of the insurance there. So that way, you know, you only have to have individual coverage on your actual unit, which ends up lowering your insurance bill to being relatively low. Like for me, I pay about $1,300 a year for my individual insurance, and the rest of it is covered by my HOA fees. Look, we got another one for sale. A ton of people have been asking about why the grass is so brown in all these houses, that people aren't watering the lawns and stuff. Well, usually, guys, they actually don't have to normally water the lawns here because we normally get a ton of rain this time of year in Florida. And this year has been unusually dry. Like normally we would get at least one rain shower a day, or a good 4 or 5 a week that lasts for 30 minutes to an hour. You get like a downpour that will come in and soak everything, and then the sun will come back out like this. Well, literally in the past 2 months, we've had basically no rain. Just little tiny showers here and there that have been happening mostly overnight, not even during the day. I'm also getting super lucky being able to come out here during the day on all these videos, guys, and shoot all these videos for you. So I've been trying to think of a backup plan in case I get completely rained out one day. So I'm brainstorming that one right now, because I still want to do these videos outside, but I can't ruin my equipment like my microphone This thing's like over 200 bucks. If this thing gets wet, it's fried. But when it comes to insurance, guys, it's not just this United that's having problems. This year, so far, there have been 5 other insurance companies here in Florida basically go insolvent and are no longer going to be insuring properties here. So it's going to be interesting to see what the state government's going to be doing about this. They did sign some legislation earlier this year that's supposed to combat a lot of the fraud that is leading to these problems to begin with. But obviously, some insurance companies just aren't going to want to take on the risk of being in a hurricane-prone area either. So there's that. So this is an ongoing story. A lot of you have asked me to comment on this, and this is the latest. We're losing yet another insurance company here. And for now, this is probably just going to continue to make insurance in Florida harder to get and more expensive. So keep this in mind if you live here now or you're planning on making a move here. If you guys enjoyed this video and you found it entertaining, please subscribe to the channel and check out my next video on the screen right over here, and I'll catch you over in the next one.